Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dad's Gone Crypto. A couple of weeks ago, I did an episode on Bitcoin and how I think it might just be the perfect form of money. When I was researching some of the concepts for that episode, I came across a really interesting online book titled 21 Ways. I finally got a chance to sit down and read it, and it really got me back to thinking of Bitcoin in more of a philosophical way rather than just money. So this episode is based on some of those concepts. So if you want to take a deeper dive into them, I highly recommend reading the book. The link's in the description if you want to go check it out. So without further ado, today I want to invite you on a little journey that will stretch your way of thinking about money, morality, and the example that we set for our kids. Because Bitcoin is not just money. It's not just some newfangled technology, and it's definitely not just an investment. It's a kind of mirror showing us who we are and who we could become. It's kind of a teacher reminding us of the truths that we've forgotten. And it's kind of a challenge, asking whether we have the courage to live freely in a world that keeps trying to take our freedoms away. So today, let's talk about why Bitcoin is more than just a number on a screen, why it touches the core of law, language, property, and responsibility. And most importantly, let's examine the fact that freedom doesn't come from permission or approval. It comes to us through natural law and our willingness to fight for it. So let's start with three simple but powerful forces that hold society together and that quietly shape your everyday life: rules, words, and value. Now, rules, that's what you can do and what you cannot do. Words, what you can say, what you cannot say, and value, what your time and energy are worth. Most of us don't think too much about these things, right? I know I've rarely ever stopped to think about them, but they're always just kind of there. But if even one of them is corrupted or captured, the whole foundation starts to crack. So think about your paycheck. You trade your precious hours for dollars, trusting that you can save some for a tomorrow when you might be too old or too tired to continue making that trade. But over time, those dollars buy less and less. Why? Because someone else decides how much money exists, and they print more whenever it suits them. Or think about words. You try to speak honestly, but more and more people are afraid to say what they believe. We've all seen people silenced, deplatformed, and canceled for speaking up. And then there are the rules, the laws. Once meant to protect the weak from the strong, they increasingly seem like they're there to protect the powerful from everyone else. And none of this is new. In ancient Rome, when the empire's silver coins were diluted with cheap metals, inflation ran wild, trust collapsed. In 1920s Germany, hyperinflation turned teachers and bakers into beggars overnight. And in 2009, Zimbabwe had to print trillion-dollar bills. Yeah, each bill $1 trillion, just so that people didn't have to carry a wheelbarrow full of cash to buy a loaf of bread. These three, rules, words, and value, are all tied together. If you distort one, the others follow. Debase the money, and people stop trusting the laws. Silence their words, and they lose their ability to defend their rights. And this is why Bitcoin is so remarkable, because it cuts through the ties of tyranny. It gives us a system where the rules are transparent and can't be changed behind our backs, where your choices are recorded honestly, and no one can steal what you've saved through hidden printing or quiet confiscation. It's not just about buying things. It's about reclaiming your dignity as a person who works, speaks, and lives on your own terms. Now, let's dive into these a bit deeper. Let's talk about language, because Bitcoin at its core is really just a kind of language. It's a way to say something, a statement about who you are and what you value without asking for permission. Every time you send Bitcoin, you're sending a message. It's written in the math, not English, but it still says something very powerful. I own this and I choose to spend it. Throughout history, words have been more dangerous to tyrants than swords. Martin Luther's thesis on a church door sparked a reformation. Pamphlets written by Thomas Paine lit the fire of the American Revolution. When people behind the Iron Curtain whispered the truth to one another, the Soviet Union fell. Words can be outlawed, but they always find a way. In the 1990s, the US government even tried to ban strong encryption, calling it a weapon. People laughed and started printing the code on coffee mugs and t-shirts, because how do you ban numbers? And Bitcoin is just that, numbers. It's a kind of sentence you can say anytime you want and nobody can stop you. You can carry all of your savings in your head as a string of 12 words. No border guard, no police officer, no bureaucrat can erase what you've memorized. You can cross a border penniless in body, but wealthy in mind. And that's a lesson we can teach our kids, that real wealth and real power start in your mind. That you can't silence someone who refuses to stop speaking, even if their language is just math. Next comes property. And it's something every dad feels in his bones. You want to provide for your family. You want to protect what you've built. You want to pass something down. But here's the truth. Property in the physical world has always been fragile. You can buy a house, but stop paying taxes and the government will seize it. You can save cash, but inflation eats it alive. You can run a business, but a single bad law or corrupt official can shut it down. History shows us this over and over. During the Great Depression, Americans were ordered to turn in their gold to the government. During financial crises, governments have seized bank deposits overnight. During wars, homes and farms are burned, looted, or nationalized. Why? Because physical property is defended by violence or the threat of it, and the strongest always win. But Bitcoin changes that. It gives you property that lives in a different place, outside the reach of fists, guns, and decrees. It's not held in a vault or behind a lock. It's held in your mind, proven by math. If you know your secret key, you own it. If you don't, you don't. This is what real sovereignty looks like. When what you own can't be taken by anyone else and can't even be found unless you choose to reveal it. A wise man once said, "They can take everything you can touch, but no one can take what you've built up inside yourself." That's the kind of property Bitcoin lets you protect, but it only works if you're willing to take responsibility for it. And that brings us to the hardest part of all, responsibility. Freedom sounds wonderful, but it comes with weight, because once you're free, there's no one else to blame. If you lose your Bitcoin keys, that's on you. If you send coins to a scammer, no undo button. If you fail to learn the rules, the system won't protect you. Freedom without responsibility is just chaos, and Bitcoin doesn't allow that. It demands integrity, it demands patience, it demands that you pay attention. That's why I say Bitcoin is a kind of training ground for sovereignty. When you run your own node, you're saying, I won't just take your word for it. I'll check for myself. When you hold your own keys, you're saying, I don't trust anyone else to guard my future. That's my job. It reminds me of fatherhood. You can outsource everything. Give up your kids to screens, to schools, to systems, but then don't be surprised when they grow up confused and weak. Or you can show up every day and take the hard road, teach them by example, and watch them grow into confident, resilient adults. Bitcoin teaches the same lesson. No one is coming to save you, and that's okay, because you're capable of saving yourself. So why does this matter to you, to me, to dads everywhere? Because we're not just living for ourselves. We're modeling a way of life for the people, our children, who come after us. If we cower, they will cower. If we compromise, they will compromise. If we stand, even when it's hard, they'll remember that. Ronald Reagan delivered one of my favorite quotes when he said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we'll spend our sunset years telling our children, and our children's children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. Bitcoin is not just about making money. It's about making meaning. It's about saying, I refuse to let someone else decide what my time is worth. I refuse to let someone else tell me when I can speak or how much I can save. I refuse to leave my children a world more broken than the one I inherited. Your kids don't need you to be perfect, but they need you to be brave enough to show up and claim what's yours. And when you do, they'll follow. Thank you guys for indulging me on my little philosophical ride today on Dad's Gone Crypto. If this spoke to you at all, if it stirred even a little something inside of you, share it with another dad who needs to hear it. And remember, you don't need permission to think. You don't need permission to speak. You don't need permission to save. Bitcoin is just the beginning, but freedom, that starts at home. See you next time, guys. The material and information presented in this recording are for entertainment purposes only. Do not misconstrue what you hear as investment or trading advice. Always do your own research. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by the guests on this recording are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Dad's Gone Crypto or its hosts.